Today, we're diving into one of the oldest, most enduring stories ever told. It's a tale packed with power, sheer panic, and a deep, deep longing for home that's been grabbing readers for 4,000 years. So let's get into it and investigate this ancient mystery together. So, what you're looking at here is a piece of the story of Sinuhe. And believe me, in ancient Egypt, this thing was a blockbuster. It was so popular that we have more surviving copies of this story than any other piece of literature from Egypt's Middle Kingdom. I mean, scribes were copying it for centuries. That just goes to show you how much this one story really hit home. And that's what makes it so irresistible, right? Behind this epic adventure is basically a 4,000-year-old cold case. It's a mystery that scholars still debate. Why would a man who had it all, power, prestige, you name it, suddenly just throw it all away and flee into the desert? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. To really get to the bottom of this, we first have to meet the man at the center of it all. He wasn't a king, he wasn't a god, but he was a guy who walked the halls of power every single day. This is Sinuhe, in his own words. He calls himself a follower, a servant to the royal family. Now, don't let the word servant fool you. This was not a minor role. He was a trusted official, an insider with direct access to the king. He was at the absolute heart of the Egyptian establishment. And this is where it all goes sideways. One moment, Sinuhe is a secure, respected courtier, and in the very next, his entire world gets turned completely upside down. Okay, so picture this. Sinuhe is out on a military campaign in Libya with the heir to the throne, Prince Senusret. All of a sudden, a messenger arrives with shocking news. Back in the capital, the king, Amenemhat I, is dead. Now, the story is a little cagey on the details, but other historical sources, well, they suggest this was no peaceful death. It was almost certainly an assassination. So as you can imagine, chaos just erupts in the camp. But while everyone else is probably scrambling and making political moves, something inside Sinuhe just snaps. He is gripped by this pure animal terror. And what's really incredible is how the ancient text makes you feel his panic. He tells us his heart just staggered, seized by this sudden, overwhelming dread. You gotta remember, the very foundation of his world, the king who was seen as a god on earth, had just been shattered. And then his body just completely betrays him. Imagine this high-ranking, composed official just losing it, shaking uncontrollably right in the middle of a military camp. And right then, in that moment of pure panic, he makes a decision that changes his life forever. He doesn't think, he just runs. He literally leaps away, desperate for a place to hide, and flees Egypt without a single word to anyone. Now, you might be thinking this is the beginning of his tragic downfall. But what happens next? Nobody could have seen this coming. After nearly dying of thirst out in the desert, Sinuhe's life takes this absolutely remarkable turn. He gets rescued by a Syrian ruler, and far from being some lowly outcast, Sinuhe thrives. He marries the chief's eldest daughter. He's made commander of their armies, and it turns out he's a brilliant warrior. He's given wealth, power, the best lands you can imagine. I mean, by any standard, his life in exile is a massive success. And this is the central conflict of the whole story. On one hand, he has everything a person could possibly want, a family, high status, military glory. But on the other hand, he is just consumed by this profound homesickness. He says, "What matters more than my being buried in the land where I was born?" See, for an ancient Egyptian, being buried properly at home wasn't just a nice thought. It was absolutely essential for a good afterlife. So this all brings us right back to the central question, that 4,000-year-old mystery. If he was innocent, why did he panic? Why would he flee a country he loved so much, only to spend the rest of his life desperate to go back? Let's look at the theories. Over the years, scholars have basically landed on three main ideas. First, there's the impulsive school, which pretty much takes Sinuhe at his word. He just panicked. I mean, the king, a god, was murdered. In that chaos, a loyal guy's fear just took over. Then there's the conspiracy theory. Sinuhe was somehow in on the plot, and his panicked run was really an act of guilt. And finally, a third theory. Maybe his flight wasn't about fear at all, but a calculated move to break free from the rigid Egyptian court and find his own way. What's so cool is that the story might actually be giving us a huge clue in his name. Sinuhe means son of the sycamore tree. The sycamore was sacred, a symbol of life, yeah, But related words also carried meanings of escape, death, and protection. It's almost as if his entire destiny, fleeing from death, searching for protection, was spelled out from the very beginning. And check this out. This perfectly shows his internal struggle. As soon as he leaves Egypt, the story stops calling him Sinuhe. His name, his actual identity, is just gone. It only shows up again years later when he finally works up the courage to write to the new king, Senusret, and beg to come home. It's such a powerful narrative choice, showing just how lost he felt without his Egyptian self. So, yeah, we've got this ancient Egyptian story about one man's personal crisis. But why are we still talking about it 4,000 years later? Well, it's because the themes are just completely universal. Sinuhe's journey has these incredible echoes we see in some of the most famous stories in history. His story is almost a mirror image of Joseph's in the Bible. One finds success in Egypt, the other finds success by leaving it. His battle against a local champion, total David and Goliath vibes. And his final celebrated return to a forgiving king, well, that has the same powerful feel as the parable of the prodigal son. And he does get his wish. After writing back and forth for years, the new king, Senusret I, graciously invites him home. Sinuhe gives up all his foreign wealth and even his family to go back to the Egyptian court. There, he's cleansed, given his old job back, and promised a proper Egyptian burial, making sure his journey to the afterlife is secure. The runaway is finally home. In the end, Sinuhe's story leaves us with a question that's just as relevant today as it was 4,000 years ago. He had wealth, a family, and power in a land that he himself called a paradise, yet none of it felt like his. He gave all of it up for the chance to be buried in the same soil where he was born. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What makes a place truly home? Is it a physical location, a feeling of belonging, or is it an identity that we can never ever really leave behind?